Ready? Okay. Where'd everyone else go?
They're coming behind.
Okay, perfect. All right, we're just waiting for a few more speakers. We can? Yeah.
Good morning, y'all.
Good morning. All right. Solidarity. All right, well, while everyone is getting up here, I can just introduce myself. I'm Christina Nguyen, the Executive Director of Communications and Community Engagement. Thank you, everyone who's watching online and to our media here. We're here to talk about the 2023 state accountability results. And so we'll have 4 speakers. We'll start off with our Superintendent, Mattia Segura, followed by our Board President, Lynn Boswell, the ACPTA President, Lori Solis, and then finally, remarks from our Rodriguez Elementary School Principal, Monica Mills. And so after everyone gives their remarks, we will follow up with some questions. So if everyone is ready, I will kick it off with Superintendent Segura.
All right. Well, thank you all for being here this morning. Before we get into the details of the 2022-2023 accountability release, I want to take a moment to recognize that here in Austin ISD, we have incredible schools doing incredible things. Our staff work very, very hard to meet the needs of our students. Our parents and community support this district. Most recently, that was shown in strong support from the Proposition A back in November. Our local elected officials are advocating for the resources we need to deliver better services as well. And every single day, I'm amazed at the remarkable progress our students are making and all that they are accomplishing. Now let's discuss how we got here. The scores we're talking about are from 22-23 school year, so about 2 years ago. This is also the first time since 2019 that district-wide scores have been released. These scores have gone through the courts and lawsuits tied to TA shifting the goalposts and significantly changing the STAR test. Like other districts across the state, we've seen some drastic swings in grades with this recent release. Overall, Austin ISD went from a B district in 2019 to a C district in 2023. We have 30 schools identified as failing, 16 of which went from a B in 2022 to an F in 2023. And the one thing to keep in mind is that these are the same students and the same teachers from one year to the next. And while there are some glimmers of success according to the state system, there's more we can do to move student success. And what I can say is that every single day, Austin ISD educators are working hard to meet the needs of every single student. We know we have to do better, and we know we need to step up to meet the increasing demands, even in an imperfect system that will not capture the brilliance of all children as they go through their educational journey. We will evolve ourselves to meet the needs of our students and the demands of the system. Now here's the good news. We've already gotten started. Since 2023, we've introduced historic raises for educators, stabilizing our campuses after significant turnover and learning loss during the pandemic. In 23-24, we implemented multi-tiered systems of support, ensuring our students get high-quality instruction and have the support staff needed for additional support. And in 24-25, we invested in instructional coaches to build capacity with our newest educators and content interventionists to bolster student learning. Moving a system as large as Austin ISD doesn't happen overnight. That's why we got started 2 years ago. However, I'm proud to have a passionate team and our Austin community behind us as we evolve our school system into a strong, agile organization that continues growing leaders here in Central Texas. I'd like now to introduce Austin ISD Board President, Lynn Boswell.
Thank you. Thank you, Superintendent Segura. Thank you for everyone being here today. As you've seen, and as the superintendent just explained, these accountability results show a drastic change from ratings under the previous accountability system. And it's not just Austin. The new test and the new measure have led to a 233% increase statewide in schools rated with an F. Take a moment to let that sink in. 233% increase in schools statewide rated as an F. This is not just happening in Austin ISD. This is a systemic reshaping of the yardstick that's used to measure our state's public schools. Texas has changed the rules on the public schools that serve 5.5 million Texas students. Those changes make it easier for the state to take over public schools in communities as they have done in Houston. That doesn't mean we can allow any school or student to be considered failing under any measure. So it's our job as a district, as a community, to do everything we can to ensure that our students are successful and to ensure that we meet accountability under the system we are obligated to operate under. Austin has a thriving public school system that's central to our city's success. We're maintaining progress in new ways for students and our schools that haven't been served in the past, and it's important as a community that we continue that progress. We have big ambitions for our students, not only to develop strong skills in subjects that are tested, but also to become excited and engaged learners, to become curious and critical thinkers, and to give our students opportunities to explore and experience a wide variety of options that can find that spark that can become a passion and a career. We're doing that every day in our schools. And while the ratings that we're seeing today are not an accurate or complete reflection of all the good that's happening in our schools, they do represent a metric we must meet. To do that, schools need resources from the state, including adequate funding. We need to continue the strong and collaborative leadership of our board and our superintendent. And we need our community's love for our schools and our creativity as Austin in the face of this challenge. Austin ISD is at a transformational moment because Austin shows up to choose our public schools and to support our public schools. We have a $2.4 billion bond that is creating new campuses in communities that need them most and moving across the city to transform our learning spaces. Thank you to our voters. Our voters also showed up in November to help us maximize the funding we are allowed to have in our public schools by passing Proposition A, and that money is being used wisely and well to support our students. People across demographics in Austin continue to choose our public schools. That's rare. In Texas, that's one of our beautiful strengths, and it's something we need to continue fighting for. After years of instability from the superintendent and record high teacher turnover, we have high retention rates that are continuing to serve our students and stable leadership in our district. We have strong leadership that's built on strong relationships and strong academic practices and a strong commitment to educating the whole child. Great things are possible if we maintain that momentum. And now we need to unite as an Austin community to protect and fight for our public schools. This change is impacting districts across the state, and we're going to meet this challenge as only Austin can. Our community must come together, and I know that our community will come together to support our schools, to ensure that opportunities that our students deserve continue, and to protect the schools our city loves and depends on. The future of Austin depends on the future of Austin ISD, and I appreciate our city showing up to do this work with us. And now I'm going to introduce the Austin Council of PTA's president, Laurie Solis.
My name is Laurie Solis, and I'm the president of Austin Council of PTAs. In helping volunteers across Austin ISD, I've had the privilege of visiting every single campus, either delivering materials, collaborating with staff, or volunteering in classrooms or at events. I see firsthand how hard our students, teachers, and staff work every day, and I'm extremely grateful for their dedication. AISD serves nearly 73,000 students and leads the state in nationally board certified teachers. From CTE, ROTC, fine arts, and athletics to multilingual education and academics, there are meaningful successes happening every day in classrooms across our district. And yet, when I look at the most recent test results, I feel alarmed and disheartened. I'm not surprised students struggled with a brand new online test with completely new measuring standards. What's alarming is that these first year AI graded results are being used as a definitive measure of learning rather than a baseline to help students and educators adjust. I've seen the long-term impact of COVID, especially in middle and high school. My youngest, now in 8th grade, was in 4th when the pandemic hit. I supported her math class via Zoom, and many teachers and students didn't have that kind of help. Now they're being asked to master complex material without always having the fundamental skills, and that's not on them. Our educators are doing everything they can, but they need more resources and investment to provide the targeted support our students deserve. As a community, we took an important step forward by passing Prop A or Vader, helping us better support and retain teachers. But it's not enough. We need the funding increases proposed by state leaders to become a reality. In my home, I have 3 very different learners. One child needs lots of practice. Another has always tested well with minimal effort. And my youngest, she struggled with reading in elementary school. Thankfully, targeted after-school support helped her thrive. Multiply those 3 stories by the tens of thousands across Austin ISD, and you get a sense of the complexity our educators face every day. I'm proud of the progress our district is making, especially as leadership stabilizes and investments begin to show results. Attendance is improving, students are more engaged, teachers feel more supported, but we still have historically underserved populations, and we must keep pushing forward. Our community cares deeply about public education, and the time to act is now. Families want more than test scores. They want their children to grow into compassionate, responsible, well-rounded people. If we continue to measure success by a single test on a single day, we miss what matters most. We all need to understand what's at stake. And this isn't just about Austin ISD. These scores will shape decisions across the entire state. So I invite you to get involved, learn about these tests, what they measure, and how they're measured. Volunteer at your neighborhood school, join a PTA, or advocate at the state level. What happens in Austin ISD impacts the entire experience of living in Austin. Let's commit to working together to support every student, every teacher, and every school. And now I'm going to introduce one of our wonderful principals.
Thank you. Good morning. Before we finish today, I want to share an example of the whiplash of going from a B school to an F school, essentially overnight. My name is Monica Mills, and I'm the proud principal at Rodriguez Elementary here in Southeast Austin. In 2020, our school received a B rating, which was a testament to all of the strong work that our teachers and our staff had done to support our students' learning, especially after the pandemic. Then the test changed. The questions changed. It went from paper to all online. It went from multiple choice to multiple ways to ask questions, and it even included a writing component, or I should say a typing component, because the entire STAR test was on the computer, and the results were graded with AI. Now, imagine our students who had already demonstrated that they knew the concepts, but now they had to add additional computer skills just to be able to take the test. But I'm proud to say that our campus is already doing the work. We've invested heavily in our pre-K programs. We've joined campuses district-wide in adopting reading academies for young learners. We've worked on strategically improving our planning and our PLCs and our MTSS process, and we work really hard to recruit and retain our talented teachers. Now, last year's scores are not out yet, but we are projected to be a B. I share all this to say that our students are more than a test. Our schools are more than a test. But believe me, we can show our worth no matter how it's measured. Thank you.
Thank you to all of our speakers. We'll now open it up to any questions.
You mentioned the fact, obviously, that over around 30 schools received that rating, and many of these schools. So why do you see these schools struggling, and what has the district implemented since 2019 to help?
Yeah, so one of the things that we recognize is the way that STAR and it kind of evaluates growth versus absolute performance. So what we know is that schools that serve historically underserved student populations tend to get a lot of their contribution to the score, the STAR score or the rating, through growth. What has shifted is the focus on absolute performance. And so you can imagine, the schools that are really having students, move over the course of the year, that will see tremendous growth, but because of how it's weighted now, that doesn't necessarily show up as a change in rating. So the schools that you see that went from B to F are schools that relied more on growth, at least initially, versus absolute performance. And so one of the things that you think about as schools grow and as students learn is that you have multiple years of growth, and then you begin to see it in absolute performance, right? And so we've done a lot. So in this configuration of the administration and the board came together in 2023. We began immediately evaluating the curriculum in K1 and 2, identifying what needs we need to do early and not just the testing grades. So focus early childhood, understanding system improvement, recognizing that we can do all the wonderful things, but if you don't have an educator in the classroom, nothing's going to move. We prioritize how we hire. We looked at resource allocation. We developed a system to determine which schools have highest need and ensure that the entire organization understood that and used that to make decisions to support them. We implemented MTSS, multi-tiered system of support. Recognizing that first teach is incredibly important. We will never get to where we need to be without first teach. That's really supported by instructional coaches. We had them in the past, but they weren't distributed based on need. They were really based on where a trade could occur, where they could be funded locally. So we took that in-house, we used Title I funding, and we're able to provide that support. And then you think about MTSS, which understands and is a system that's used to determine where a student is relative to on-grade performance. And Tier 2 and Tier 3 are intervention supports. Well, when you have an educator that is working with the class, we need to have additional supports come in to get that student that needs a little bit more support back to grade level. That's where content interventionists come in. We haven't had them. Well, investment by way of Proposition A helped do that. So for us as an organization, we've been doing a lot. We have to do it organically so that it's sustained. It can't just be drill and then prep to the test. It really has to be a complete system solution, which is what we've been endeavoring to do since 2023. Now, based on what we have now with the accountability ratings coming out, we know that there's adjustments, there's some things that we really have to think about a little bit differently in order to ensure that the measuring stick that is now being used is one that we ensure will be successful once measured. Yeah. Yeah, so one of the things that is always really challenging is, the final scores are always, TA goes final, right? So we do projections, we take the raw data, we have teams in Austin ISD that really seek to understand the performance of our students. But it's always, in many cases, it's incomplete until very, very late. So yes, there were opportunities, and some districts chose to release the accountability ratings for 22-23. We, however, recognize that there was still a lot of uncertainty around kind of how that was ultimately going to come about, what the ratings would be. Cut scores, for instance, shift. There are instances where we think it's going to be X, and then it shifts, and so schools that were a C end up becoming a D. So there's a lot of movement pretty late kind of in the process. So that's why we chose to make that decision at that time. As we look at 23-24, when you think about where we were as an organization, kind of building up the systems, bringing in the resources, addressing vacancies, hiring, all of those things, we do see, at least based on raw kind of data and what we have now from the agency, is some improvement. It's not necessarily where it needs to be. We think 24-25 is really where all those systems kind of come into place. I've almost kind of viewed 22-23 when we came together in that late spring. We made some adjustments, but 23-24 was really the first year where many of these systems took root. Professional development was able to be deployed, resources were able to be deployed. So that's why those 2 years are kind of viewed in that way. Yeah, they definitely do. You know, one of the things that we are very mindful of is that, you know, as schools receive these ratings, different actions are required, whether it's a campus improvement plan, a turnaround plan, or if at the point you get to, you know, 5Fs, action by the commissioner, a shall, you know, regarding closure of the school or installation of a board of managers. So they do have an impact. You know, the accountability system changed not too long before the pandemic. We had 1 year of grades. And so then you have, you know, 2018, 2019, you have grades, and you have the next year, no grade, next year, no grade. The year after that, if you're A or B, then you got a grade. And so 22-23 represents the second year in consecutive Fs for some schools. In some cases, it's just the next, you know, letter grade. 23-24 will potentially be the third grade, and then 24-25. So one of the things that we're navigating is this reality that within a 4-month span, we could have 3 letter grades hit any one of these schools. And so we're being very mindful, being very thoughtful. It certainly does come into our work regarding how we support the schools. Because the one thing we know is that, you know, we have the ability to move the system. The timing and cadence of it adjusts. As maybe I alluded to before, when we came together and as the board developed their scorecard, the administration was set on building comprehensive initiatives that move all systems organically. You know, does it in a way that can be sustained. We were very thoughtful and deliberate with how we built those. But what we know now is that some of that work has to shift up, maybe take a different timeline. Resource allocation may have to adjust in order to ensure that we don't get to a point where schools are at risk of state intervention. Yeah, I can certainly speak to that. You know, one of the things that I'm always thinking about timelines. As y'all probably know, we sent a communication out late yesterday evening regarding the adjustment in timeline associated with the turnaround plan for Dobie. Previously, it was under a federal accountability timeline, which required an April 30th submission. That now has been adjusted to June 30th. And this is something that we had been advocating for with the agency. It was really, you know, wanting the agency to recognize that to produce a turnaround plan, which typically takes a year to do in 3.5 months, is very challenging. And to implement in 25, 26 is very challenging as well. So, so that is the timeline that we're on. There'll be some adjustments. We'll talk about that more tonight. Regarding the contracts, you know, for us, we need to have the flexibility to deploy resources if necessary. We do not have to use the contracts, right? They are merely a mechanism for us to exercise the right to do something. So there are many instances when we have contracts go before the board that are there mainly to be accessed, because if we get too far down the road and we don't have the ability to you know, make adjustments or improve the facility or install portables or modular spaces, then we won't be able to meet the 25-26 obligation. So it is really a function of process and the ability to access if needed.
Building off of that previous question about accountability, the district is taking action now because of projections that it has. How is the district using this position with another school? Ratings for 23 school year.
You want to go first, Emily?
Yeah, I think the more aggressive the accountability system becomes, and Texas with this new measure has one of the most aggressive accountability systems in the whole country, the more aggressive our responses have to be. This is truly a matter not just of serving students who haven't necessarily been well served in our schools. It is a matter at this point of saving our district, and the threat is not theoretical. We have seen what the state did in Houston, and we cannot let that happen in our district at the same time, in our community, at the same time as we're making sure that we are serving all of our students. And the board and the administration have been talking a great deal. More turnaround plans are going to be required, and we have to get it right. We absolutely have to get it right. And again, the good work that has already begun is a huge part of that. We're talking today about scores that are a couple of years old, and we know since then our teacher turnover has decreased greatly. Our planning time is being used really thoughtfully and well. We're not addressing third grade scores just in third grade. We are expanding our pre-K. We're going to be doing that in conjunction with the county with new funding to expand high-quality early childhood care. We know that the scores our kids get, our students receive in third grade, in middle school, when they graduate from high school, are rooted in their very earliest experience. So we're working to strengthen our systems all the way up. And we have to consider, we'll have to be talking about other schools that are on that trajectory, really looking at academic solutions, and we need to be talking with our community about factors that are beyond what happens within the walls of our classroom. We know that at some of our highest risk schools, more than 1 in 4 students move during the course of the year to chase affordable rent. We know our city is expensive, and we know that when kids move during the school year, that impacts not just the student who moves, it also impacts all the students who remain in the class, because when people come and go, that disrupts learning, it slows things down, that's a challenge. We need to work on that. We know that Texas has the highest rate of uninsured children in the country. Kids bring that into the classroom with them, and as a community, how do we help mitigate that? We have a community with immense resources, with immense care, with immense capacity. We need to lean into that and service. This is part of that story. You heard from our PTA Council president, we know every family is an expert in their child. Our families are powerful tools to make sure that great things are happening in our schools to support their student learning. No matter what background a parent has, that parent has an interest and a capacity to support their kids academically, and we need to lean into that. And we have a really unusually powerful and diverse range of community partners that are really an important part of this work too, from our after-school partners to our in-school partners, our donors. We're going to need to lean into that as well. So this is a citywide kind of challenge. It's on the district to get it right. But we're going to be calling on our whole city to lean in even harder with us for the schools that we love. And Austin shows up for public schools. And I trust that we're going to show up together and help get this right.
Are students in programs like full language taking the same work test, and how would that play into the rating?
So this has been one of the conversations that we've had with particularly our middle schools. One of the things that occurs now in many of our elementary schools is we have students that are taking STAR in Spanish. That is a local decision. It is not one that as a system we have directed, but we know that there are models that really reinforce the need to do everything in Spanish, and we believe in those models. The challenge that has come is when the system that you're operating in doesn't necessarily lend itself to that type of instruction, it becomes challenging. An example that I'd love to share is we have many students who take this, the STAR test in Spanish and will get meets. And they'll go to 6th grade and they can only take it in English. And so they have to move from meets in Spanish and stay in meets in Spanish or meets and go to masters, show growth. And so when you think about the challenge of getting to a level of understanding and knowledge with the language, at the same time you have to demonstrate growth and skill set, it becomes very difficult. And you don't see that growth until 7th and 8th. But between 5th and 6th, we do see a significant kind of impact to the way that STAR ratings are calculated. Now, for us as an organization, it's acknowledging that. It's the system that we're operating in, and we have to look at it and say, okay, well, what programming and supports can be provided in the summertime? If between 3rd and 4th, 4th and 5th, English immersion, let's prepare our students to be successful. And let's consider, even if we maybe have a slight step back, but you take STAR in English in 5th grade, it'll prepare you for 6th grade. And so those are sorts of system changes that we are exploring to ensure that whatever we do, we do what's best for our student first. We ensure that we do it in a way that aligns with our values, and ultimately we do it in a way that ensures that the measuring stick that's being used to evaluate us shows significant progress and growth. So that is one very unique kind of example regarding that.
I was wondering, is it going to put, this isn't happening kind of after $110 million budget deficit? What kind of strain, or is it going to put strain on the system? You have a growing number of schools that need turnaround.
Oh, it's a significant strain. There's absolutely zero doubt about that. One of the things that we talk about all the time, and as I visit communities, and as everybody behind me and our trustees visit communities, is there are schools across Austin ISD that, whether it's Title I, non-Title I, high ECODIS, non-high ECODIS, that have lost resources over the last many, many years. We had schools that had instructional coaches that were paid for, locally, or we had different types of supports at these campuses, and we're no longer able to sustain that. And so when you think about the efforts required to turn around schools, they're resource intensive, and dollars and the ability to pay for those resources is something that we don't have a lot of. And so one of the things that I'm kind of communicating out to our principals and to our staff and to our community is that the kind of evolving organization is going to have to consider the very difficult decisions regarding cost reductions, including consolidations, which we've talked about and we'll talk about tonight, as well as how to deploy those resources. And one of the things I've had conversations with principals about, they'll say, Matthias, what if we each contribute dollars to help reduce the budget? And the one thing I tell them is that we want to put more money into our schools. And so we really have to be thoughtful and make difficult decisions to ensure that we have the resources and that they're deployed where they need to be, which is in the classroom. So yes, 100%, it is a strain. We will be tackling both together in alignment and in parallel. But my strong belief is that once we're through this, we will have an organization that is truly representative of the community and one that leans into the values of this organization and is a high-performing school district. We're taking on.
And I'd like to add to that, some, we have no problem with high accountability standards. We have high standards for our kids, and getting it right requires resources. You heard conversation earlier about our instructional coaches, about our content interventionists. We know that class size matters, and we can't do those things without funding. And we are spread very, very thin. And that's not just an Austin ISD issue, that's an everywhere in the state issue. And we have seen a bill come through that will increase school funding. It doesn't increase funding enough to even get us back to where we were in 2019 when you consider inflation. And so as the state has higher expectations for our students, we need to continue advocating for more resources for our schools. It's only fair if we have higher standards that we have the resources we need to make that real. And yeah.
I know the district has discussed consolidating schools in light of it. How might the new release of these 8 directives impact the district's decision?
We are going to work and address the improvement work of the organization, give the ever-evolving work that we're doing to ensure that we have high expectations. We're doing it systematically. So for us, all data is data that'll be used. We're going to have a meeting with the trustees in early May to understand the priorities around consolidation, and we will take that with all the various data sets that we have to develop tools and rubrics. We'll do the work. The one thing I'm wanting to make sure comes across is that we will agree to a process before we agree to any data set being used. It's really important that as a community we recognize this is what we believe is an appropriate process, an equitable process, one that leans into who we are. We do the work, and then the outcome of that will be the consolidation plan. So it'll be part of it, but it won't be a focus.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Okay, sorry. Thanks, guys.